Yeah, so everybody, for this video and for this blog, this is the very first little recording. What we're going to do is we're going to work with Sergio. Sergio has done some projects before using the value first techniques, and he suggested to me that it would be really nice for everybody that is you potentially reading this blog or seeing this blog to be able to see how Sergio would start the project from the very beginning. And that's where we are right now. He hasn't begun yet. He has all kinds of ideas and in his head, but the project itself is not started. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the project using value first techniques, and Sergio is going to let you in on the journey of the successes and failures and just every little step. So the idea is that that can inspire you to be able to do the same and see it's possible. You see every little step of the way what needs to be done, and we'll see where it goes. We don't really know where it's going to go. It's not a planned out thing. We're just here at the very beginning, and it will go wherever it will go, and we'll take you with us as part of the journey. So Sergio, before we start, I know I haven't even told you this. I actually just thought about it. You told me a little bit about your upbringing. I think that would be actually a nice place to start. If you tell us where you're from, and all this interesting thing with your family, and a little bit, 5 minutes from take us back to Colombia. You want to do that?
So, I'm Sergio. I'm from Colombia originally, and I've been traveling a lot and learning a lot from other people. So I was doing roller skating when I was very young, and then I was studying electronic engineering because my father and my mother, they own a business, so they build machines. So it's like my playground used to be where they build the machines. So
Yeah.
I very well know how industry works. And one of the things that really inspired me is when I started getting in touch with things, getting close to, okay, I know a bit of engineering. First thing that they told me is like, he's been working like that for 30 years, don't even think about touching it. So what I did was actually touching it, checking things, and starting, okay,
Of course.
now we need to make it this work. So a very difficult journey, because where do you start? So part of the journey is, okay, what questions should I ask when I'm going to change something? So the first time I was lost, and I think I was lost for a very long time, but I was trying things, and I was using value first without knowing that I was using it. Not in a systematic way, but at least I knew what the machine has to do, so what they should produce, how they're supposed to work. We knew how it was not supposed to work, so that helps a lot. But we didn't have it systematically, and I think that's what many challenges for many people is start a project, have resources that are very sparse, have to take care of them. How do I do it? So it's actually work for everything. It's not in life. You're going to start learning something. Where do I start? So that's where we are now.
Yeah. And so you mentioned to me that your family actually owned this engineering company where
Yes.
you produce things, and you grew up with that, and you learned from your father and just playing with the machines, and you actually operated the machines.
Well, not operating, but I knew how they were supposed to work. So we were doing like control engineering, and we were doing some part of the electrical installation of the machines. So I was not actually operating when I became an engineer, but when I was very young, then I was working, building them, and doing not really easy work. So it was very nice.
And you went to engineering school, or?
Yes, I went to the National University of Colombia, the engineering school, which was placed where my parents live, Manizales, Colombia.
Okay. And yeah, you also, I mean, since we're here, we might not do so much of this personal stuff, but since we're here, you were talking to me earlier about how learning engineering abstract compared to learning it with real machines and knowledge of machines. Could you just say a few words about that, like you were talking to me about? I thought it was really interesting.
Yes, I think in the beginning, going to engineering school was very difficult because everything was, yeah, we're going to work in a project. The project was not real. So everything is just very abstract, and you know how to relate to physical things. But when you're going to work with machines, then you have to actually know what the context is. So it's not that you're just working in programming or mechanics. So at some point they're just going to, fuse together. So you have to make everything out of it. So it's like when you want to build a bridge, then you have to know mathematics and physics and a lot of other things. Then you have to know how to handle people, work with people. So that knowledge is not like it doesn't go together at university. They just split it, and they hope that at some point you're going to learn how to make it work together. And I think that's very difficult because it doesn't go like that. It takes a very long time, and we have no tools for it.
Interesting. Now and then, fast forward a little bit. I understood you went to Venice and London, and you ended up in Norway. And then at some point you took a workshop with my father, Tom Gilb. And at least on the last you did, and then you did another one. I think 7 years ago you told me you did a workshop with Tom, and then we will have. So after the workshop, you actually executed on these methods on building a system for self-check-in at the Oslo airport, a self-check-in of luggage. Now we will have that case somewhere else, so we don't need to go detail into that. But I understand that you went on a workshop, and Tom was very sharp on this idea that you have one goal. What was that one goal?
So he was asking me, okay, what's the project about? So I knew about the requirements, so I was talking about what we got in the tender, which are not, those are the requirements that the customer wants, but it's not what the machine is going to do. It's not the value that is going to be produced. So it was like, I think, talking about 3 minutes without saying anything in a proper way. And then you were like, okay, just use one sentence. How you're going to do it? What is it going to do? Okay, yeah, we're going to check in a bag in 5 seconds. Yeah, that's your goal. So I then started to talk about it and more requirements. And no, that's your goal. Actually, that's the only goal that you need to care, because that's the value that you're going to produce.
Which was the goal?
5 seconds, to deliver a bag in 5 seconds.
Right. All right. And that's a fantastic story, and we'll have details on that elsewhere. So now we're at the beginning of what? What is this journey starting? What's the project idea?
So the idea now is to use data to improve the knowledge of how a plant works. What do you mean by that? It's not just that the machines are healthy, but the whole process is producing what it's supposed to produce. So the value that they're going to produce is values for the products that they're going to deliver. So how to improve that part of it. So it's like using the Gilb method to understand how this company works and how to improve it.
Right. Okay. So there's like at least 2 elements, right? You have some machines you're going to be working on, but these machines are part of a plant.
Yeah.
So you're going to improve the machines that will improve the operations of the whole plant. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. But one part I was using mechanical vibrations and a lot of condition monitoring.
Yeah.
That's used to keep the machine healthy, but it doesn't mean that the plant is healthy. So what I mean is, in the connection between machines, something's not working, but the machines are healthy, so the plant is not producing what it's supposed to produce.
Okay,
so it means that we need to know how they work together, how they interact, to keep it working in a flow.
Right.
So
you're expanding sort of the responsibility, not just making an improvement to the health of the machine, but actually how that affects the whole plant, and doing it in such a way that the plant operation, the outputs, the health of the whole plant will be better. Is that the idea?
Yeah,
So
that's correct.
now I understand. So if I understood you right, also that we have a company where you're going to build this for, but at the same time you are thinking of creating a system that can be used for many companies later. Is this the idea?
Yeah, that's the idea. So that's value for our company. So how we produce it has to be scalable and replicable. So we can deliver now, and without many changes, it should be delivered in many other companies.
Okay. Yes. So I have an idea. So we have some machines. They're producing something, and the project is going to be about improving the health of those machines. We can talk about what that is. We'll see what that is. And then again, in such a way that it will improve the health of the whole production plant,
Yes.
including many machines and people and everything involved in such a system.
Yes.
Right. And then, what we're going to do is we're going to start, with a value first approach. And so let's do that. So do you know what to do? How do you start, right? It's a big question. How do we start?
I think I know, but that's why that's one. The first question is okay, where we are.
Right.
I know what I want to achieve. How do we actually express that?
Right.
As value? Just a main value.
Right.
To keep the project going, so we know where we're going.
Right. So what I recommend is that first you make a list of all the stakeholders, not just the machine or the usage of the machine, but you need a full list of all the stakeholders that have an interest, where they want an improvement, or maybe opposite, they don't want you to improve, right? They'll be like your enemy, but hopefully mostly the positive stakeholders. So this would be anyone from the plant owners to the operators to the people that receives the product that the machines produce, to if there are legal consequences, to anyone who's going to sell the machines, maybe, and even yourself is going to develop it, or your team that's going, So what you need to think of anybody and everyone that has a say. Some will be more powerful, some will be less, but at least we should be able to capture them all the best we can. If you don't manage to capture everyone now, we will learn as we go along. We'll improve that list. So I think that's the very first step I would go to do. You want me to go through a few more steps, or should we talk more about the stakeholders? What's your thinking?
I think we can, maybe more steps, then we get an overview, and then we can go back to.
Right, I think so too. So I think that's it's not like a 3-week job to get the stakeholder. It's a few hours of you sitting and listing, and then your list won't be perfect, but it'll be a pretty damn good list to start with. Then what we need to do is we need to brainstorm, not define all of them, brainstorm the top critical values of those stakeholders. So some of the stakeholders will have the same value, but some of them will be very different. So you need to sort of go through the stakeholders and say, okay, here's the operator. What do they care about? What improvements could I give to this guy that he would be really interested in, right? But just a high level. Don't go deep in every little detail that they might want. Then you're going to get overwhelmed. So if you think of at least one value per stakeholder, which would, if you created this value, they'd be really excited. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to actually deliver all those values to all those stakeholders. We need to sort out which is more important for us, right? So let's say that there are some marketing guy and he has some values, but actually you're not going to do much about it. Then we'll just leave it because we have other things to care about. So we can't do everything, at least not at once. So we will have to prioritize, but at least get the names of the values that these stakeholders have. I think that's step number 3. And then number 2, and then number 3 would be to pick some of those values. You start with 1 and you quantify it. And you will show how to do that. You've been on the training, you know how to do that. So you quantify the value, and then later we'll show you what you did, and then you quantify as many of those values as you think is critical for you to succeed, to get to. Then slightly different is you need to do a similar exercise but for the product. So sort of as if the product is the stakeholder. So you need to look at what quality attributes of the product, the quality / values are really synonyms. What quality or values of the product are you going to enhance to help satisfy these stakeholder values, to create these values of savings, etc. At the stakeholder levels, there'll be higher throughput, bigger savings, something like this. At the product level, it will have to do with your ability to detect faults before they happen, and things like this you're looking for, right? The health aspect. You're talking about the health of the machine. And then we have to start mapping it out, and then we have to find all the relationship. It's going to be a little bit challenging between the machine and the plant and the stakeholders and your technical ideas to make it happen. So all of this, don't worry about the technical ideas now. I know you have many in your mind, but we'll get to those, right? So first we try to map out the 2 things really is, where are we now? How good or bad are the machines and the plant now, and how good are the values for the stakeholders? And then number 2 is some future state of improved values that we think we can deliver. Then, so you have a lot to do now. Then what you could do is, looking at those values, I might have to help you a little bit again with the order of things. These levels, I call them levels: stakeholder, product. But then you need to map out your, let's call it, top 10 ideas. So I'm thinking, except that there are some levels, so there's a little bit more complexity. Top 10 values is enough. You don't need hundreds of values. You need top 10 values, but maybe there are 10 at the product, and then 10 at the stakeholder. And so there'll be more than 10 altogether, but 10 top values, and then 10 main strategies that you're thinking of. You have some ideas already for how to improve this, right? And so just at the higher level of detail, not dive into it, just describe up to 10 different ideas that we then can prioritize and see where we start, and later break down into more detail, but that will be later. So I think that's a lot already, and so I think that needs to be done. So mapping out the stakeholders, brainstorming values, quantifying some of those key values, and really doing the same thing on the product. What improvements to the product are you imagining where you can have an effect? And at the maximum of 10, it could be just 1, right? I'm not saying it has to be 10, but maximum 10, quantifying the values or value of improvements of that product, I think. And then lastly, a paragraph or two about each solution strategy that you have in mind at the higher level. That's where I would start. Is that something you could work with, or where you have questions?
Yes, so I get the idea now. So first the stakeholders, then we get the stakeholder values. Then I prioritize those areas. And then we go to product level values. And then we list again 10 of them, or well, less, but at least we limit the ones that are important. And then we go to solutions, where we just take the solutions in.
And you don't have to decide which solutions yet. It's just a list of the things that you have in mind as the most powerful. I know you have lots of ideas, right, for how to improve this. So just make a list and of these things that you think will
I think that to have those ideas is actually the biggest problem, because it's very easy to get the favorite solutions, and then you're going to work on that, but that is not going to produce any value, and then you have maybe another solution that is going to do it. In a way, is how to organize those ideas, how to make needs out of it. How are they going to help me get to where I want to go?
Which is the next step, right? So the next step, I'm not sure, maybe we should talk again before you get there, but the next step is then organizing those ideas and prioritizing them up against each other, and seeing which one will give the most value, which one you have to do first, and these things. So, and then we're going to break those down into actionable things that give value, right? So we're going from the big ideas to prioritizing, to breaking it down, to taking one and actually doing it and seeing if we get any effect up in the value chain. That's the next steps.
Okay. One question that I have is, we have the main goal, but is it static goal, or how does it work?
Say again. I didn't get your question.
I have the main goal. This is the main idea that I have, but how does it actually work? Because at some point maybe it's going to move. How do we make that change?
When the goal moves, how do you change? So like I said, what you get now is the best that you know now, but it's not like now is the beginning of the project, so you know actually the least. You know very little about all the stakeholders and the products and how the technology will work, and so what we will do is, as we go throughout the project, you can adjust. We see, this, we're kidding ourselves, this isn't going to work, or this value isn't really what they're looking for. So once we start attempting to deliver value to the stakeholders, we'll start getting new ideas, new feedback, and we'll just keep improving until we get the product right, until we produce a product that really hits home for the owners and users and the plant, and so don't worry about perfection, but you know what you know, so try to the best you can to get it right, but experience says that again and again that what we had originally won't hold the test of time. It will change, and that's okay.
So it means that the values are going to be more or less the same, but the solutions are going to be changed?
Both. Solutions definitely change, but even the values can have major changes in them. Right? So even the values, you think that what the plant operator would like is some kind of performance enhancement or something like this. And then you start delivering that to them, and they say, no, it's not really what we're looking for. What we're looking for is more like stability of output. It doesn't have to be so fast, it has to be stable. Something like this. I'm just making it up. I don't know what they will come to. So then we will turn. Then we say, okay, we will then deliver stability of output if that's what you really need. And then of course then the solutions maybe have to change, and by the final delivery of something, hopefully we found real values that the stakeholders really appreciate, and are willing to pay for, right? And then we can take this, like you say, scale and replicate. Then we can go to other plant owners and offer it to them.
It sounds very good.
Yes. So what we will do is, I think, is you will start. You can have feedback of me. I think we mentioned we're going to use this valve plan tool, this technical tool, and then what we will do is we will have an update for everybody, you know, and yeah, just come back to it and have an update, and we will show some of the actual specifications and you know, the list of stakeholders, actual specifications, and then we will take it from there. Is that?
Yeah, it sounds, I think, very good, because then this is what, for example, at some point I was missing. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know how to make it properly, and it's very easy to go for perfection straight away, and then it's like analysis paralysis. You thinking a lot but not doing anything, so you're just standing there.
Yeah. So I would think that I don't know how much time you have because you're doing this while you're doing other jobs too, right? So,
yes.
but you know, a day work to get the values. Now, if you're doing both stakeholder value and product value, maybe you need 2 days, right? It's up to you how much you know and how many they are. So a day or two to create all the values, and then 1 day to think of all the solutions. That's it. So that means you can't be perfect. in 2-3 days, you're not going to describe this system perfectly. It's very complex. So, but you describe it at the high level of the values. So, you know, so this is critical. And then your ideas also. Only so we have some idea of what they are and what maybe can do some guesses of what they will cost and some guesses on how valuable they'll be at satisfying those values. Yeah. So now, like you already know how to do value decision tables. So that is the next step. So, you know, if you're already there and you feel like going to the next step, throw those solutions. I would think like that first. Throw the solutions into the value decision table towards the product values. We'll deal with the stakeholder values in the next step again. Right? If you do too much at once, it gets a little overwhelming. So if the first goal would be to get a good table up between the solutions and the product values. That would be the first goal, and then as we get going with that a little later, then we'll tune it, put that more and more towards the stakeholder values also.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds very good. I think I get the idea of what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's very good. I am very excited to see where this goes, and I'm sure you're even more excited because it's your real project. So, and I hope that you know, many of that we get many viewers that like to follow along and see where this project goes and see if Sergio manages to pull it off. That'd be exciting. So yeah, let's end it now, and then we'll pick it up again with an update coming up in the somewhat near future, in some days. We'll see how many days, but in some days you'll get an update. Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you.